Hi, hey, Russ here. Welcome back to my shop. Today I want to talk about lumber storage. Oh, I know, that's really exciting stuff. But actually, I think when you see what I'm going to show you here, you're going to have a whole new perspective about how to store your lumber. I am going to confess that I am a wood hoarder. I have more wood than I should have. What can I say? It's a weakness. With that in mind, now I have to figure out how I'm going to store my wood. Well, I actually was thinking about this for quite a while before I finally built my lumber storage unit that I have now. And I actually based it on the idea of the big box stores, the lumber stores, the Sam's Clubs and all those where they use the racks. And they utilize all four sides for access for you to get and look at products. So they use it for display, but they're using these racks, and I'd like to call them, I'll call it a cube, and that's what I'm going to do with my lumber is I store it in a cube storage. Not a lumber rack, but a lumber cube. So basically, and I can explain this better if I show you how I did mine, and then you'll understand it. So I built a basic cube to fit my needs, and that cube is 8 foot long, 6.5 foot tall, and 5 foot wide. So the whole cube is 5 foot one way, 6.5 feet by 8 foot. And this cube has 15 different cubbyhole compartments in it. So I have 15 different storage areas on this one little area. And this is about 40 square feet. So it doesn't take up much room in the shop. In my shop, and you can make this any size you want based on how you want to store the things you want to store. But the idea is I'm actually going to have access to my cube on one end, on one side, and on the top. And so by having access to these three areas for all my cubby holes, I can actually use that whole cube to store different things. And I base storing everything I do on the length of the piece. For example, if you look at this cube from the end, I put it, let's say this is the wall of my shop. This is the corner, and that wall goes out the other way at 90 degrees. Yes, this drawing is to scale. If I take this cube and push it right up into that corner there so that this face is on this wall and this face is on this wall, put it right in the corner, then it's going to take up a certain amount of wall space here, 8 feet of it, and 5 foot of wall space on this wall. So I'm losing all that wall space. But what I'm doing is I make all these different cubby hole areas in there so I have access from different directions to different depths. For example, over here next to the wall area, I have 4 cubby holes that go the full 8 feet. And they're about 20 by 24 inch square. And so I can put different size woods in all these different ones, and I can move it from one cubby hole to the next, and they all go the full length. Right here I have 2 compartments that are again 8 foot deep. That's where I store my plywood on edge. It's about 50 inches to the top of this cubby hole area, and I can put plywood on either half, and I can flip them over back and forth to get to a piece of plywood that I'm looking for. So my full storage is right here. Right here where the dark green area is, I actually have a 5-inch wide shelf. And the reason that's only 5 inches tall, not wide, it's about 3 foot wide. But in this area, it's full 8 foot. That's where I keep my track saw, and I keep my plexiglass and a few things like that in here also. And I can store pretty large pieces in there without any problem. And I don't have to worry about stacking things on it too high because it's only 5 inches tall. So it's a very small area, and it helps me control how much I put in there. And then these 2 areas here, they're 3 foot wide and about 18 inches here, I think, something like that. And it's 16 inches deep into this area. So I put my very short pieces, blocks of wood and different things like that go into this area. Right here I store all my 8 foot or longer lumber. And I can put all my dimensional lumber, 2x4s, things like that there without any problem. All my plywood here and all my little short pieces here. So if you come around to the side of the cube, in this area, you have this flat panel here because the plywood storage is right behind this wall right here, and it goes the full length of the cube. But up here, these only come out 2 feet. So these little cubes are all 3 foot deep into the cube area. And I have 5 different compartments here that I've divided off. And so I can put 3 or 4 foot length pieces in this area here. If it's 4 foot, it just sticks out a little bit. Plus I got to put some shelves right on this area here so that my cube actually has shelf space on it. So it's like having this wall space still that just moved out away from the wall. So I still had some wall space left to put shelves on, even though the cube is taking up the whole corner. So now I can put 8 foot pieces here, plywood sheets here, other miscellaneous short pieces here, 3 to 4 foot here. Now actually what I did on my area is from this corner out to here is 12 feet. This is my overhead door. And I actually moved that cube away from the corner 2 feet. So my cube has got a 2 foot gap over here and a 2 foot gap over here between the cube and my door. And that's where this sets. And so I took this area here now because this cube is 5 foot wide. I could take and I put shelves in the end here. So I have 2 foot wide shelves that are 5 foot long that I can use back here. And I put my remnants of plywood back here too, rather than the full sheets here. When I cut them down partially, if they fit back here, I put them back here instead. So it gives me a lot of storage in this little cube. So when you design the cube, I have access to this side, the face here, and I can the whole top is 18 inches below the ceiling. So I have that gap there that is just flat, and I can put a lot of my long resaw lumber up there out of the way until I'm ready to use it, and I can just move it around up there. So this holds a lot of wood up here too. So that's kind of the way the whole thing sets. Like I said, it's 2 feet out, so I actually added the 5 foot capability out here in the corner area. And that's how my cube works. So if you take your cube, and you have to make it fit within your area if you want it to work. So if I laid out my little shop here, this is the floor plan of it, and yes, it's to scale too. This is my 9 foot overhead door. The picture window I had in an earlier video was right here. Walk-in door, sliding glass door, and another window here. My furnace is in this corner. So this is the basic layout, and these are the things that I can't move around in my shop. So if I take my cube of my lumber, and I can actually put this cube anywhere I want, depending on which way I put it and how I put it. I have access to both sides on the cube designed this way, plus access here. So if I had my overhead door and put that here, I could go straight in this way, and this here would be the only area that I wouldn't be able to get to. So this would be a good place to put a cube. Now, in my setup here, because of the way I am, what I did is this is my overhead door, so my lumber, everything comes in through here. I actually put my lumber rack right here. It's 12 foot from the corner to the edge of the door, and I put this centered between that area so that I had 2 foot here and 2 foot here. And that gives me my best place to bring the wood in and just stick it directly in the rack. And so this is where I put my lumber storage cube. And like I said, you could put this anywhere you want, however you want, depending on how you store your things and how it fits into your scheme of your shop. But the beauty of doing it this way, making it a piece like this, if I really wanted to, I could empty this rack, and it's only anchored to this one wall here. I could take and unanchor it, and I could actually take this and move it somewhere else if I decide that I'm doing something different and that's not where I want it. In fact, originally, I had my lumber cube actually sat here when I first moved in, just like that. This window here, this is almost like a little room here, a 3-sided room. But it really turned out to be too small. The whole place was broken down way too much. So I found that putting it over here near the corner was a much better place for me to have my lumber cube, and it gives my shop a much better open feeling than the rest of the shop. So you can think about it, and if you think about what I'm talking about, first figure out how big a cube you want and which direction you want access to on the cube. You don't have to have access all the way around. In mine, I actually only have access on the top, on this end, and on this side. And I can get to every cubby hole that's in there, and I can put a lot of different pieces into a very small area then. So you want to keep that in mind, the theory of how you do it and how it fits to your own. Now then, the reality is, it doesn't look as neat as it looks right here. But here, this is my actual lumber rack, so you can see and get a comparison of how it works. And very quickly here, I'm going to just go over and point out some of this stuff that you saw on my schematic. Right here, these are my two compartments. This is the divider. That's where my plywood goes. This is my 4 areas for long lumber. So I can put long pieces in here in these 4 areas, and it goes back the full 8 feet. And plus, I'm 2 foot off that corner, so I actually got 10 foot. I put my 10-foot pieces of PVC pipe up here so that I have room and I can push them all the way in if I wanted to, push them against the wall. So that's what all that storage is. I have all the flat storage up here where I keep all my unusual, bigger resawn rough lumber is all up on top. And this is just all open, about 18 inches to the ceiling, so I can get a lot of lumber up there. This thing, the way it's constructed, is pretty much out of 2x3s and 3/4 inch plywood. And a lot of scrap of different pieces from different things. So I really don't want to get into the construction of it itself. It's just like building any big box with shelves and that sort of thing, and cabinet with cubby holes in it. It'd be the same thing, however you want to build it to get the strength. Just keep in mind that this thing is strong enough to hold a lot of weight without any problem with just out of 2x3s and 3/4 inch plywood. So you don't have to have this huge, heavy duty cube in order to store a lot in it. The other thing I want to mention about my cube, if you look down here at the floor, the other thing I did was on the floor in the concrete, I actually laid a 2x3 here, and I put one, I think they're 16 inches apart, all the way across here, and they're just laying flat. And then I put a piece of plywood, 3/4 inch plywood, on top of that, and that's the bottom of my cube. That way, air can get underneath my lumber rack, and air can circulate throughout the whole lumber rack. And so I just thought it would give it better and keep that lumber off of my concrete floor. So I did put that there, and that means basically I lose about 2 1/4 inches of space, of capacity from top to bottom. So in an 8-foot ceiling, it really wasn't that big a deal. So I just kind of proportionally designed it so that I also knew that I would lose that 2 1/2 inches for air circulation. So that's what mine looks like. Oh, if you look on the side, you can see the 3 shelves that I put in here, and right above it is where those cubby holes are for the 3 and 4 footers up there going this way. So that's where I kind of keep that stuff. This is my small blocks of wood. This is about 16 inches deep here, and my track saw's in this little area here. So, and my plexiglass. So that's kind of how I took this drawing here of a cube, and I designed how big and how I kind of wanted it for sizes, and I turned that into reality of what I have over there. So if you want to do some wood storage, remember, not all wood is created equal. And I based my storage unit on the length of the wood as to where I would put it, so I can really break it down. And what makes it easier to find what I'm looking for, quite honestly, when I go by size first, has size range. So anyway, if you have any questions about this or comments, please leave them below. If you have any suggestions of how to make a lumber cube better, I'm all for listening to it or talking about it, because like I said, I've never seen anybody else talk or do anything like this and seen it in this concept. So hopefully you will mark like this time and like the video. I would appreciate it. But most importantly, please come back again, because there's going to be plenty more before I'm done. You have a good day.